Welcome to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. I am your host, Shana Southern. I am an angel mum, a rainbow mum, a pregnancy loss practitioner, and trauma-informed coach. I created the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss out of my own experience with loss in the hopes to provide understanding and healing, educating people on pregnancy loss, and creating more women or men in trained support roles. In this podcast, I hope to shed light on what I wish I knew in relation to pregnancy loss, opening up the conversation, breaking the stigma, and bringing real-life stories plus guest experts. Thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, beautiful souls, to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. Today, I have with me Jodie Fitzsimmons. Jodie is a teacher and writer from Melbourne. After having a son easily 8 years ago, she was not expecting the roller coaster journey of almost 5 years of secondary infertility, pregnancy loss, and IVF that finally led to a rainbow baby in 2024 at the age of 41. She is currently a children's writer, but also writes about her experiences with secondary infertility and IVF on her Substack page, jodiefitzsimmons.substack.com. Welcome to the show, Jodie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Hi, Shana. Nice to be here.
So you've had obviously a lot of things come up in your journey that potentially would not have been expected prior to it all. So do you want to share a little bit about your story and how it led to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, definitely a lot of unexpected roadblocks along the way for sure. So I guess for me, it all started back 8 years ago. I was married, we were wanting to have children, and we did have a son when I was 34. And it happened very easily and quite quickly. And so we just said, we'll just see what happens. And within 4 months, we were pregnant. And I had a normal pregnancy. The only issue was the actual birth, which was a bit of a sudden emergency Caesar. That's a whole nother story though. But yeah, apart from that, everything was very normal. It was just what you expect, basically. We just assume, of course, as most people do, that once you've had one child, the next time you're ready to have another, it's going to be exactly the same sort of path. So again, when we felt ready to go again, and we waited probably 2 years, 2.5 years before we tried again, we thought it would all be fine. Unfortunately, although we did fall pregnant pretty quickly again, so we thought, great, it's happening again for us. And it was going to be the perfect age gap. It was going to be 3 years almost exactly. And I had a girlfriend at the time that was pregnant at the same time. And I thought, great, we're going to have our babies together. And everything just seemed to be falling into place. It was that real false sense of security, 100%. It was just, it felt really good at the time. And unfortunately, I think it was probably within that 8 weeks, I had my first miscarriage. You get told at the time how it's such a normal thing. If 1 in 3 pregnancies, I think it is something crazy like that. You have that first one and it's really upsetting, obviously, and it wasn't a fun thing to go through. But I had that mindset of, it's okay. Lots of people go through this. It sucks. It is what it is. We just have to move forward and get on with things. And so that's what we did. We just said, okay, let's move on. We'll be okay. It happened easily. We'll try again. And unfortunately, after that time, it just did not happen after that. And so we started to think, oh, okay, maybe we need to try a bit better. I think you try, but sometimes it's just not being safe.
Try harder.
Like, okay. Yeah, exactly. We really have to plan these dates and plan the times and things like that. And it still didn't happen. And that was 2019. So the whole rest of 2019, nothing happened. We went into 2020, still nothing happened. And of course, that's when COVID hit. And so living in Melbourne, that was not a fun time for anyone. So it was really stressful. There was lots going on anyway in life. And so when things weren't happening, we just assumed it has to be, maybe it's stress related. I went and saw my GP and she said it possibly was. She said people don't realize how much stress can actually affect us all. She said people just think, I'll be right. But if you're stressed, it's actually puts a really it's really taxing on your body, especially if you're trying to have children. So she said, try and relax. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Tried to relax, but obviously in 2020, it wasn't going to happen at all. And we weren't falling pregnant at all. And so that was really disappointing. So it was a really horrible year, just with everything going on in the world. And we had a few other little health issues here, nothing too serious, but just things that we also thought maybe this is contributing a little bit. I had shingles and all these things that just came out of nowhere. So it was just a horrible year. And we just went, okay, we just need to write it off a little bit, I think. But we did decide to have an initial consultation that year with an IVF specialist. My GP put us on to someone just to have a chat, just to see what their advice was. So we did go, we had an initial consultation, and it was pretty full on. We need to get started here, and we need to do this and this, and get started on the hormones and this, and we need the counselling. And it was quite overwhelming. And in the end, I actually spoke to a girlfriend of mine who had gone through IVF before. And I just spoke to her and said, what do you think? Do you think I should try this now? And she said to me, look, you need to look at your headspace of where you are. She said, because it takes a lot. It's draining. It's emotionally hard. If you're not in the right space, I would maybe just wait just that little bit longer. And because I had been unwell, because of COVID, because of everything, we just said, you know what, it's too much. Let's just put it aside. We'll just see what happens. So 2020, that was just a write-off. So then 2021 came and things started to turn around a little bit. So I fell pregnant very quickly in January, I think it was. And then the first month came and went, and we went, okay, this could be it. But then unfortunately on Valentine's Day, I found myself in the emergency room having another miscarriage. So that was not a pleasant experience either. Thankfully, it wasn't as traumatic as my first one. The first one was not a nice experience, but this one, it happened pretty quickly and easily, thankfully. But then I'm just trying to be in that mentality of, let's just keep going. I fell pregnant again. Hopefully this is changing how things are going to look for this year. Hopefully it's going to be a bit more promising than last year. So again, we tried, and again, I did fall pregnant, again, pretty quickly, I think. But that one, I think that was a chemical pregnancy, and that disappeared very quickly. I think I fell pregnant twice more through that year, and one, I think, was another early miscarriage, and another one was a chemical pregnancy, where you get all excited because you get that little mark on the stick, but then just literally within days, it's nothing again. So it was a really hard year, that one. So we had those sort of 4 experiences that were really deflating every single time. And then getting to the end of that 2021, we said, all right, I might be able to get pregnant again, but clearly something's going on where I'm just struggling to keep it. I don't know how to keep it, basically. So we then got in touch with the people at the IVF clinic again and said, okay, I think we need to talk about getting the ball rolling again. So we started everything. We did the counselling, we signed up, we paid deposits, we did everything we needed to do. But then with the timing of my cycle and everything, it got quite late in the year, and it was falling along their Christmas break and all that time. And it was just one of those things that, oh, great, the timing's not even going to work for us this year. So we then had to postpone until the next year. So then 2022 came. And that's when we really started to try properly. So I think it was, February in 2022. So I had my first retrieval, did the first transfer, and first time I fell pregnant. And I was so excited. I just went, this is it. This is all we had to do. We just had to find the right embryo. We just had to get that right part of us that needed to be there to make this happen properly. But I had the 6-week scan, and the doctor looked at me and said, look, the sac is there, but the heartbeat is quite weak. It's not as strong as we'd like. And maybe it's not measuring quite as much as we'd like it to either. So she said, look, come back in another week. We'll have another look. So we did that at 7 weeks. Same thing, still a weak heartbeat, still not as big as they would like. And she was making it seem very much like it's not looking the best. And we tried to stay positive. My husband, I was on the phone to him and I was getting a bit upset when I was telling him because he couldn't be there with me at that appointment. And he just said, look, it's not over yet. Just we'll wait and we'll see. But I knew then and there, I could see the doctor's face and I knew that it wasn't looking good. So I already had it in my mind that it was done. And the doctor had said to me, look, we'll come back in 2 weeks. And I said, I can't wait 2 weeks. Can we do another week? So sure enough, we came back at 8 weeks. And by that stage, there was no heartbeat at all. So that was our first round of IVF. So I had to have I never remember what it's called because I think it's changed, like the DNC. It's now the evacuation of the something.
I only know it as the DNC, and I think everyone that I've spoken to have just referenced it the same way.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't even know there was a different word for it now.
Yeah, I didn't know until I got the paperwork and I'm like, what the heck did I just pay for? And then I went, oh, that's what that was. Yeah, I had to have that. So obviously once that was done, I couldn't try again for another couple of months. So again, that kind of pushed things back. So I think it was probably around August, I think, that I then tried again. So we did the Thor cycle, tried again, had the transfer, and that one was no luck. So we got the test back and no pregnancy there. Okay, so at least the good thing about this is we can just go straight away again. So we just went straight away again. September came, did another Thor cycle, waited and did the transfer. I did have the pregnancy hormone, but they said at the time the HCG level is it's too low. So it's not going to happen for this pregnancy. So you get that phone call and it's, yeah, you're pregnant, but so it's like, okay, I'd rather just not be, to be honest. Like to hear that you're pregnant, it's just never going to go anywhere from there is pretty devastating again. So that was that was our third attempt. So I think we did one more I think it was October, and again, a negative test where nothing happened. So that was pretty much all of 2022. So we tried sort of 4 times with no success. So after 2 years, after 2021 of just failure, 2022, nothing with the IVF, it was starting to get really deflating and thinking, we have to be really serious here. This might not happen for us. And look, we knew how lucky we were in respect to have already one child. When you've grown up always wanting siblings, you always want someone else for your child, or you've just had it in your mind. I grew up as a kid of 2, so did my husband. So it's just something you just always imagine. I just found it really hard to imagine that it wasn't going to happen. So we decided we would try again. So that was around December 22. But unfortunately, again, another roadblock happened. I suddenly got some abnormal bleeding. And so we were right at the time of doing the retrieval. And I had to go to my GP, say, hey, this is happening. We had to do another pap smear. And then she said, look, everything looks okay. So I think on my end, things should be okay, but we'll just wait and see what the results are. So I still went ahead, did the egg collection, retrieval, and then waited for the results. And of course, the results came back with something abnormal. So right after I'd done the collection, I'd been really excited to try again with a fresh embryo. And then my fertility doctor said, we can't go ahead with this now because I had to have something called a colposcopy to check what the abnormality was, to see if I needed to have any sort of surgery or procedure. And she said, if it becomes the case that you are going to have something, you can't be pregnant. So we can't put this embryo in until you've been cleared of everything. So I heard this while I was in the supermarket with my mum walking around in the shops. I burst into tears in the middle of the supermarket. I'm like, I can't keep doing this. It's just disappointment after delay. And it was hard. It was just starting to feel really hard at this point. And so I finally got the results. I had my colposcopy, got the results. And of course, it was all fine. So I didn't, which was great news, but it was also frustrating because I'm like, oh, I could have gone ahead with it a month ago, 2 months ago. So I then had to wait until, when was it? I think it was January. No, it was later than that. It was, so then moved to 2023. So we've now gone to 2023. And so I then was able to try again. So I had another transfer, but that was with a frozen embryo and that was a negative result. So that was the fifth time, another time that we had a negative result. And I only had that one embryo, I think. I think that was the time that I didn't have many options. So that was really unfortunate. And that's the thing. Every time I had a collection, I was getting less and less embryos. So it was a little bit worrying that I just wasn't going to be able to get the right ones. So my husband and I had the chats. We had to say, okay, we've now been doing this. We've done this 5 times. Can we keep doing this? Should we keep going? It was really starting to take a toll on everything. The relationship starts, like, it sucks to say it, but it starts to deteriorate a little bit because it's all you're focused on. It's all you're thinking about. It means everything's on a schedule and everything. I'm doing my injections and I've got to be here at this appointment. You've got to be here. It's so structured and time consuming and expensive. So there's a lot of how much can we afford to do this? And we were very lucky that we were able to have some help from our parents as well, because if we didn't, we probably wouldn't have been able to do as many as we did. But yeah, we had to have the serious conversations at that time, but I just wasn't willing to give up yet. I just kept thinking, I know I was 40 at this stage, about to be 41, and I just thought, I've still got another year, or I can still give this another year, maybe two. I'm not ready to stop yet. So we did another retrieval, yeah, around May, I think it was, in 2023, and did the transfer. And again, the transfer was really hard because I had scarring from my original emergency Caesar that I had for my son. So every time I had a transfer, it was harder than it needed to be because there was a ridge that they needed to get over. And so there were so many transfers. I did 6 transfers in total, and everyone, they're like, it doesn't usually take this long. And I'm like, yeah, great. I'm glad it's me. And so they had to really work hard to get over that ridge to get it into the right spot. I was there, it should have been a 10-minute thing, and I was there for often at least half an hour. And I had 2 doctors try once because they couldn't get it. And I had another time where they're like, can you go and just empty the bladder a bit because we still can't get it? And so every time it was a bit of a trauma, to be honest. So I was getting really sick of these transfers too. But in the end, that transfer that we did in 23 in the May, that worked. And finally, after 6 goes, we actually had some good news. Of course, that whole pregnancy, I couldn't get too excited. I couldn't relax about it. I couldn't think too positively. I'd be thinking what date they'd be born, how old would I be, how old would my son be? And there was always that disappointment that my son was just going to be 7 or 8, or 7 at that time. And just concerns that I wish I didn't have at that time. But yeah, thankfully, the pregnancy was good. I didn't have an emergency Caesar or anything. She actually came on time with a nice, calm Caesar. But yeah, it was a hard year as well. I just could not wait for her to be here, just to stop the worry, stop the anxiety, stop stressing about things, because it had been a long 4 or 5 years. And I could not relax until she was out into the world. And thankfully for us, we were one of the lucky people that it did work for. So yeah, I'm able to sit here and say we got our rainbow baby and it all turned out well. But it was hard. It was a lot of hard years that we had to go through to get here in the end.
Yeah, and it's like what we were saying before we started recording as well. It's not anything that you anticipate that is going to be a part of your journey.
No.
So there's no rule book. There's nothing to say, if this happens, you can do this for yourself and you can help yourself through this by doing this thing.
Yep.
You're just left to navigate all of that on your own. And a lot of the time, because also society doesn't really know how to talk about these topics either, a lot of what we end up doing is just silencing it for ourselves and pushing it back in and not really opening up about it and in truly how we're feeling.
Yeah.
So, how did you, I know I can totally relate to the whole relationship thing too. With everything, having your partner as support is amazing, but it does take a toll on so many different other areas of your life too. So, how were you able to support yourself mentally, emotionally, physically through all of that too? And then also, pregnancy after loss is its own, or loss and infertility
Mm.
is its own topic too, because that in itself, like you said, you cannot relax. So you have to then, it's just whole new level of, okay, now how do I support myself through this?
Yeah.
Because it just shifts and changes. So was there something in particular that you were able to do for yourself?
You're completely right. There's no way, no one tells you how to do anything in this experience. And the thing that was hard about it too is that we were always told there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with either of you physically. We had all the tests, we did everything. And I think that was the hardest part about it as well is there's nothing wrong with us. So why is this continuing to happen? If you can't find anything with me, if you can't find anything with my husband, then why? And because I think they don't have any answers, it's really hard for us to then process it properly without getting frustrated. And I know a lot of people don't talk about it and they do keep things inside. I think for me, I'm a little bit different in the fact that I try not to do that and I don't do that. I'm a talker. I always have been. I do like to talk things out. I love to talk to my friends about things. That's how I cope with things. But also being a writer, I wanted to probably explore it a little more. And I feel like when I write things down, that helps me as well. Because you're right, particularly with secondary infertility, I found I don't remember anyone really talking. I'm sure people have, but I don't remember seeing much about it. I've seen stories about miscarriage, I've seen stories about pregnancy loss. I just couldn't remember seeing much about secondary infertility. And it's something I just did not realize was as common as it was. And so I actually wrote an article about my experiences with secondary infertility, and it did get published on KidSpot. And I think that was actually the best thing that I did because not only did it help me get it off my chest, but I then had so many people in my little writing community on my Instagram reach out to me in my DMs and say, thank you so much for writing this. I went through the same thing. And then the next person, I went through the same thing. There's 10 years between my kids. I had someone there was about 20 years or 15, 20 years between their kids. And there were so many people that reached out to me that I just thought, wow, if I hadn't written this, I would have no idea that there were this many people right in my little circle that had gone through all of this stuff. And to have them say, thank you for writing it. This experience is so similar to mine. I was really glad that I did. And I think that's how I tried to cope with things. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to hear other people's experiences because it makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel like it's a pretty normal, common thing. And because my immediate friendship circles, no one had these sort of issues. I was an older mum compared to quite a few of my friends, and by the time we were going through IVF, my friends had their kids. They were starting school. They were doing all these other things that I'm just like, wow, no one knows at all what I'm going through. And you found yourself getting a little bit jealous at times. They've already done they've finished their pregnancy journeys and they're on to their next period. And I'm just still stuck here trying to just get this part done. And so to be able to put my words out there and have other people say, hey, this happened to me. This is exactly what happened to me. It was a bit of a relief for me just because I didn't know anyone in my immediate circle that had experienced anything like it. A couple of them, I think, had miscarriages, maybe one. But again, it was not something that was really discussed amongst us either. So, yeah, I think for me, dealing with it was always being pretty open with it and just trying to push forward, trying not to wallow in things. Because I find, of course, you have your down times and you're sad and you have your tears and you cry and you can get frustrated and all that stuff. And of course, I did that a lot of times. But I find that I need to try and stay pretty positive and just keep, what's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing I can do? Otherwise, I think I'd fall in a heap. So I guess that's how I coped with things as I went. Yeah.
And I think writing too, writing can be very cathartic because it's actually giving a voice to what's happening inside of you. And then it's in a way also processing it for you. As you're writing it out, your body is getting a chance to process and your mind is getting a chance to process what's happening. And then it is, and I've heard it so often, and it happened with me as well. When you start to share your story, it's like you give permission for other people to go, oh, phew, I'm not the only one that has experienced this. And it almost validates you as well as validating them, because then you can say, oh, look, I'm not the only one, but then they're also feeling like there's other people out there that get them
Yeah,
and feel less alone. That's so amazing. And you do, sometimes it is, and I felt it too because I obviously experienced a miscarriage. No one in my immediate circle had experienced anything like that. Not even my mum. Like, my mum didn't go through anything like that. They were an amazing support, but didn't know what it was that I was truly going through. So when you start to have people from the outside coming to you saying thank you, it starts to really reassure you in terms of what you're doing, and being able to share your story is like the right path for you.
yeah, I think so. And I think also it's important to mention too, because it's great for us to talk about things and to write about things and do all that, because it's usually the woman, obviously, that gets, how are you coping? How are you doing? And we did find that in this experience, and because it went on for a couple of years, the main crux of it all is that no one really, a couple of people did, look, I won't say no one, but not many people checked in with my husband. And I think that he needed it at times. And he was not a big talker. A lot of men aren't. But I think it's really important as well that we keep talking about it, but we also talk to the men about it as well, and really involve them in the conversations and in everything as well, because although they're not physically going through it, they go through all the mental toll like we do as well. So I think that's something we learn from this process too, that sometimes they just get a little bit forgotten and a bit lost in things as well. So I think it's really important that it's great that we talk and that women are talking about it all, that we also try to get more men talking about it and how it affects them as well. So I'd love to see that happening a little bit more as we move further into trying to make it more what goes for women goes for men. We should, yeah, definitely try and keep them included as well.
Yeah. One in 4 pregnancies will result in miscarriage. 1 in 8 women will experience infertility. 1 in 100 women will experience recurrent miscarriage. And 1 in 160 births end in stillbirth. Have you been wanting to make a difference in the lives of women or men who have experienced pregnancy loss because you can see so many suffering in silence, but you just don't know how? Collectively, we can change how bereaved parents can access mental, physical, and emotional support after their experience. There is a lot of women with unhealed trauma, and there is a huge gap in the current support system when it comes to bereaved parents' recovery after loss. There are too many women and men suffering in silence. The Pregnancy Loss Practitioner Certification is a worldwide, one-of-a-kind program that gives you proven methods designed for healthcare professionals, medical staff, midwives, nurses, doulas, birth workers, coaches, and angel parents alike. The Pregnancy Loss Practitioner Certification is bridging that gap. It will give you a proven support structure to follow and education specific to pregnancy loss, created by a lost mum. It is creating more education specifically for loss so that you can enhance your service and become the point of difference. Or you can create the support that you so desperately needed in your healing after loss. This is the next level of growth and expansion you have been searching for. So does this sound like something that you have been searching for? Let's explore this more together. You can head to the episode show notes where you'll find the program application, or direct message me on Instagram and let's open up the conversation in how you can use this education. You have a gift, and I look forward to supporting you and witnessing you bring your gift to the world, healing and transforming women's lives. Yeah, absolutely. I am connected with a man over in America who runs grief circles for men because for the exact same reason.
Mm.
He needed it. And he was like, I didn't have anyone to talk to. I actually interviewed a man here too from Australia who started up a football team of lost fathers. So it was a way of them to do their footy and process and talk and know that all of the men that were there had a deep understanding of what that, like you said, that mental and emotional toll actually feels like. Because there's such a stigma around men and being open and vulnerable. They're not taught how to do that,
Mhm.
most men anyway.
No, you're right. That's
You know,
amazing though what that guy's doing. Yeah.
yeah, so there are men who are starting to come forward and make those shifts and changes, but like you said, there's not as much, and people still don't necessarily think in the moment to check on how the man's going. But they are absolutely still going through the feelings, the emotions, the grief. It just is different. It looks different. The way that they're going to process it is going to look completely different.
Yep.
And like you said, not all men like to just sit and chat about it either. So what are some other ways that you can help them, be there for them, but in a way that's actually going to be more proactive than just sitting them down and going, okay, now talk to me.
Yeah.
When that's not necessarily how they're going to respond really well. But absolutely, it's a really important part. And I was part of a infertility summit last year where they interviewed a man in an IVF infertility journey and just how much he needed that support too. So it is really a really important question when you're checking in on people to also,
Yeah.
yes, be there for the woman, but be there for the husband, the male partner too, because they're absolutely feeling some element of it. It's just it will look completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are, luckily, I think at the moment there are a few more podcasts and things with people in the spotlight. Excuse me, like the Hamish Blakes and the Maddie Jays and all those sort of guys. They're doing podcasts and other things where they talk about being dads and they're more of the emotional side of things. And I think that's great. I think we need more men being aware of those and listening to those and really embracing them. And yeah, it'd be great if more men did pay attention and listen to them. And I hope they do. Maybe they just don't tell me they do. But I think that's really good.
Yeah, and just to be okay. It's okay to feel that emotion. It's okay to feel like you're going to fall apart. And I think that's potentially where men feel like they have to hold it all together because they see their wife struggling emotionally, physically, and they're like, okay, what can I control? What can I do? How can I help her? How can I make all of this other stuff on the outside less painful? So they step in to try and control things a little bit more, but don't necessarily, they're like, we're not taught how to process emotions essentially, unless you are as a child. So then again, they're navigating probably as a kid being told, you can't cry.
Yeah.
That's conditioned in them.
Yeah.
You can't be emotional because
Yeah.
being
Don't be
emotional
a
is,
girl.
yeah,
Don't be a
being a
girl.
girl. Yeah.
Man up. Suck it
Yeah.
up, princess. It still goes on. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Mm.
So they've got that to try and shift then as well to then be able to be there and be able to express that because they wouldn't even know where to start. But it is important to start to hear men. And actually, I think there's the Bluey episodes, like they've got a Bluey podcast as well where they interview
Okay. Yeah, I watch the
they
shows.
interview yeah. So they interview
Mm.
like obviously Bandit the dad. So it's a lot about all of that as well, being able to open up about your experiences and as a parent and also just being open. I don't think that they definitely don't go into infertility and loss and all of
Mm.
that sort of heavy stuff, but just being open to your emotions and open to a different way of being is so important so that we can start to at least have a little bit more open conversations about how they're truly feeling.
Yeah, I agree. But even Bluey, even a couple of their episodes do subtly look at infertility and things like that. So that's why I love that show. It's got so
Yeah.
much good stuff for the adults as well, and it's
Yeah,
really good.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did forget about that, but there is, yeah, one episode of essentially infertility that they touch on and an episode of loss where they sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Suggest that loss was part of Chili's pregnancy journey. So,
Yes.
yeah, there's definitely, and I like how it's being brought out because it's very tasteful
Yep.
and subtle. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not in your face, but it's opening up the conversation again, just
Mm.
that little bit.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, with your writing, were you able to, did you just start like from the very first moment that everything was happening and you just started sharing through all of that? Is that what you do? And is that sort of how you've been writing?
With the whole pregnancy journey, I even back with my very first pregnancy with my son, I always kept just notes of
Mm.
everything. It wasn't so much writing articles or writing diaries and things. It was literally just dot points of everything that I was going through and everything I did. More just for me. No, I suppose knowing as a writer, maybe this is great for down the track. If I ever do a novel with a pregnant lady, I'll remember the steps that I had to go through. But then, yeah, I started to write more about the miscarriages and about other things. And that article that I wrote that got some great feedback, that was the first time I wrote properly. Like I sat down and wrote an article about it. Everything else was just notes as I went in a little scrapbook, really. But having since having my daughter, that's when I started my Substack page. And I thought, now that I'm past it, I felt like I could write more about it as well because I wasn't in it so deeply. And I guess I knew that it was a happy outcome. So I was happy to share a lot of my experiences as well. So I haven't written too much about it, but I've written a few articles and I do plan to write just a few more. But yeah, I find it just a little bit cathartic just to get it all down. But also, like you say, just sharing, people can look at their experience as well and say, yep, that's similar to mine, or that, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that, or I find it interesting to write about. I like writing about it. And I think I just like reading about other people's journeys as well and things that, sorry, I keep using the word journey. I think I don't even like that word, but I like reading about other people's stories that you wouldn't know about because it just feels like you get to know that person a lot better for it. And I just think sometimes some people might think I overshare at times, maybe. I do remember when my first article came out, and one of the comments was, you don't need to tell the world everything. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm just telling one story. I'm not telling everything. That's fine. But,
I'm going to share what I'm going to share. Thank you.
exactly. And I think that's the problem, though. I think that's why some people don't share because they're worried about what people will say about them or to them. And I don't care. So that's why I'm happy to keep doing it. I don't care what a troll on the other side of the world is going to say about me. But I think it's really important that we share. That's
Hmm.
how we know that we're not in it alone, as we said before. So I'm happy to keep writing about it as long as people are happy to keep reading it.
Yeah, and I think it is important. Like the ones that are, well, the ones that are going to be like hating on you, it's probably not even been their experience anyway. And you're just like, you're not actually the person that I need to be speaking to right now or needs to hear this right now. Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep
exactly.
sharing.
Yep.
But it's a very scary place to start opening up into because it is a very vulnerable space and you are putting kind of yourself out there, which could stop a lot of people from wanting to share.
Yeah.
But I really do take my hat off for you for not really just for not caring and just going, you know what, I need to do this. I need to just put it out there. I wanted to ask you too, I know, yeah, pregnancy after loss and after infertility, because that's been part of my journey. And I say journey, don't worry.
Yeah.
It's been part of
It's
my,
not a
I know
word.
it is like a journey. It's my journey
Yeah.
through life.
Yeah.
And that has been part of my experience too, being that my daughter now is my rainbow baby. And yeah, pregnancy after loss just brings like a whole new level of feelings and emotions and thoughts. How did that happen for you? Did you have a lot of fear and anxiety that came through in terms of, is this going to work? Or how were those thoughts and emotions for you in that time?
I definitely had lots of fears, lots of anxiety.
Mm.
It's just, yeah, you get into a space where you think it hasn't happened, so why will it happen this time? And it does become a little bit of a negative space you can get into. And I tried not to be negative either, because you try not to be too positive, but then you also try not to get into a negative headspace. You're trying to find that happy medium, but it can be tricky for sure. And I think for me, during the pregnancy, I did try to stay as positive as I could. And it's the old thing, take it a day at a time. But I think every time I had a scan or something else, and I could see each time, yep, the heartbeat's strong. Yep, you just get that relief, and it's enough to take you to that next stage. And then you get more relief and you go, okay, I'm doing it. And you just have to keep reaching each milestone, I think. And as long as I can make it to that next appointment, things look good, then I'm going to be okay until that next appointment. And then I think that's the only way you can really go about it. But of course, my daughter decided to scare us when she was born. So I had the scary emergency Caesar for my son. So he was a cord prolapse. So I was taken straight in, put straight under. I don't even remember meeting him. So that was quite devastating. So that was quite a dangerous situation. I didn't realize how dangerous until afterwards. He could have been strangled by the cord. Anything could have happened. And it was pretty scary to read about later. But thankfully, all fine. Same with my daughter. Like, the pregnancy was fine. The birth went well. She decided to have a dusky episode within hours of being born. And I don't know if you know about that, but I'd never heard of a dusky episode in my life. And apparently it's when, because they're not being born, so they're not getting all the liquids or the fluids released from their lungs, it can affect them and they can have what they call these dusky episodes. So basically, within a couple of hours, I already had family there visiting, and she started to turn blue and she wasn't breathing. And suddenly, the nurse is in there, she's telling us to press the emergency button. We had 10 doctors come in, surround her, like patting her, hitting her, doing all this. And I was just like, you are kidding me. I can, like, and in that moment, I just thought, I cannot have just gone what I've gone through for this to go badly now, for me to lose her now. So that was really upsetting. And because we were all there to witness it, my whole family, my son was there, like we were all there, it was happening and it was awful. Thankfully, she was fine. Like, she had a couple more episodes, but not as bad. And they kept her in the NICU for the next 2 nights. And she's been fine ever since. But it was just that really scary moment of, I really tried to not stress too much during the pregnancy. I feel like I was okay. And then you do that to me when you get born, when you're born. So that was not ideal. But I think the problem is there's always scary things, always things to worry about. There's always something that could go wrong, unfortunately. So you just have to just go with it as best you can.
Yeah, you can't control it. That's the hardest part. And as much as you want to, the whole pregnancy after loss and infertility, like, you want to control it. You want to have the best outcome, but you can't.
Yeah.
So the only thing that you can do in that moment is support yourself in that moment, however it is that you need to, right in that moment, do that thing.
Yep.
Because you can't control how that's all going to turn out. And like you said, in pregnancy after loss, it is just getting to that next stage. You think, oh, I'll be pregnant, I'll be fine. You don't. You think you get to this, like for me, it was the 7 week. I'll get past that and I'll be okay. And I wasn't. And I'll get to the end and I'll be okay. And I wasn't. So it's just, you just get to that next thing and you're like, okay, I'll be okay. I'm okay right now. She's okay right now. Let's just be okay with that. And each day that you wake up, you just reassess and you go again. Because otherwise, like you said, you can be in a very dark place very quickly. And it can be very consuming if you let yourself go there. And the same for me, like, my pregnancy went completely fine until the birth, where they kept losing her heartbeat through my every time I pushed, they were just like, we can't, you've got to stop pushing. We can't, you can't give birth to her right now. And I was like,
Yeah.
awesome. How am I going to do that? Every time I have a contraction, I need to push.
Yeah. Oh,
So it was the same for me. It ended up with just at the beginning, a midwife and my husband, and then there was a room of about 10 people, 10 like professionals. And I'm just like, holy hell, what's happening? So you just, And again, you don't know, take a deep breath and you just keep going with whatever you need to at that moment. And you just take the next right action, like
Yep.
however it
Mm.
is that's unfolding for you in that moment.
Yep.
And I'm glad that obviously your daughter is okay.
Yes.
I could only imagine how bloody scary that would have
Yep.
been.
It was not at all what you want to see.
No, and that was my fear, having her earth side, that she was going to just stop breathing through the night and I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So it's not like your fears ever stop, like they just change. And I think because you know the story of infertility, you know the story of loss, you know how hard that journey has been to get to where you are, you also know how easy it could be taken away. And you don't ever want to stay in that mindset of, I know what it's like to be taken away, but it is something that you're like viscerally aware of, like your
Mm.
body knows. So it is a place that you got to keep pulling your mind back from. You're like, no,
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah, 'cause
can't.
it's a dangerous spiral that you can go down for sure. And it's so funny. It's only after experiences like that where you think to yourself, when I was a teenager or even my 20s, even when I lived at home, and mum would still be, just text me when you're on your way home and do it. And I used to just be like, oh my goodness, mum, okay, enough's enough. I'm in my 20s now. But it doesn't end. You're a mum forever and it won't ever end. And I can totally see it now. I'm like, I worry every time the kids are not near me. They go to a friend's house or they go somewhere. I'm like, oh no, until I know they're there in that car without me, are they safe? It's constant. And I think it is just something that's going to happen forever. There's just always going to be a worry, which sucks. It's a long time. If we live a long life, it's a long life of worry, really, isn't it? But it
I
is.
often say that to my mom too. I'm like, just stop worrying about me. Like, I'm in my 40s. But then I was talking to my sister in the car. We were traveling for her daughter's birthday, and my mum was in the front seat, and my sister and I were in the back. And we were just looking at my mum, and we were talking about us being parents. And then we were like talking about our daughters like growing up. And we're like, even though we think we're old, when we look at our daughters, we're like, they're still babies. As much as my daughter's nearly 7 and her daughter's 4, they're still babies. So when my mum or your mum looks onto us and you, it'll be the same. Like, no
Yeah.
matter the age,
Mhm.
we're still her babies.
Exactly.
And we were just reflecting over that, going, we can understand why she does what she does and why she tells us that she's laid awake at night worrying. You
Yeah,
don't need to do that.
I know.
We can sort ourselves out. We're big people now. But yeah, it's just this constant state of worry, like you said. And it's a good worry. It's not necessarily, oh, wait, for mum, it does turn into anxiety every now and again, but she goes into a little panic, but it is just out of love.
Yeah. And it's
It's
also not because I used to think, oh, mum doesn't trust me or something like that. But it's now I know as a parent, it's the external factors you worry about. It's not even what your kid's going to do, it's all the things around them that could do something to them. It's just you suddenly everything is a scary thing because
everything's a threat.
yeah, exactly. And it's not that you don't trust your kids, it's what's happening around them. Mm.
Yeah, and it's the worry is there regardless of if you've regardless of the challenges that you've experienced to get to the point where you have your children earth. So I
Mhm.
think the worries are a little bit more enhanced because we know that those challenges and we know how hard we've had to work to get there. But I think it is just knowing what we can do in those moments to support ourselves and just be okay with the stuff that comes up, because you can't control it, but you can control yourself in that moment and know that. And as much as hard as it is, all of the stuff, all the external stuff, it will happen regardless. And as much as we don't want it to, it's how we can support ourselves and how we cope in those situations.
Absolutely.
So, just as we're wrapping up, what is one thing that you wish you knew before experiencing pregnancy loss and infertility?
Honestly, I think it's probably just knowing how many people around me had been through a similar thing. Because, like I said, I had not heard much about secondary infertility. So once I was going through it and then started to learn how many people around me had and how it had gone well for a lot of people, I think I wish I'd known that. I wish I had known that it's so normal and that so many people have big age gaps, because that's something I used to stupidly worry about, the age gap. Oh my gosh, it was such a thing, the age gap. And now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I think I wish I'd known that. I wish I knew that the age gap is not a big deal, that it happens to lots of families, not just us. And it is what it is. You just have to be okay with the hand you're dealt and realize that it's a common issue. And while it can really suck at the time, it's just something that will be okay in the end.
And that's the thing, like finding the people who are on the other side of where you potentially want to be, like finding the people who have gone through what you're in the thick of and potentially have the outcome that you want, because then you can look at them and go, okay, this is what I'm working towards. And as much as I may not see the light right now, there is light. I just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And sometimes it feels just like that. You literally just putting one foot in front of the other. You're not getting far very fast, but it's just knowing that that overwhelm, that darkness that you're in the middle of, it doesn't last forever.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered already?
I don't think so. I think another thing I was worried about was being an older parent, and you get called that geriatric mum, which is such a lovely term. But I think that was something I worried about too, being an older mum, and would I have the energy? Would I this blah blah blah? The list goes on. But I think that's another thing I wish I knew. Like it's the other factors that come into things that make the pregnancy or the after pregnancy as easy or hard as it is going to be. Like I found my first pregnancy was actually harder. Like my pregnancy was harder, and even afterwards, my son was quite colicky, went through the witching hour, did all that sort of stuff. But my experience with my daughter was much different. So for me, it hasn't been as hard as I was really telling myself it was going to be. So I think that's something we need to remember when we're thinking of how things are going to be. We look at maybe the worst case scenario. Oh, I'm old and everyone says it's harder and you get more tired and I'm not going to cope with no sleep. But you do cope, and circumstances also change. So I just think you need to look positively at it, even if you are going to be a geriatric parent like me, and just realize that you'll get through it and it might not be actually as bad as you are expecting it to be. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I think is a good thing to take away. Just think positively about it. Don't think about what could be negative. Just, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, there was often the things that I was thinking about too. Like obviously I always wanted to be a younger mom and that didn't happen. And then you get into your 40s and you're like, could I do it again? But I think if it's something that you really want, just listen to that. Don't let anyone else change your mind on that. And commit to yourself. If that's what you want, just do it and see where see where that path takes you. But that was always, yeah, something that I had in my mind too growing up. I was like, I don't ever want to be like in my 40s or anything having children. But then you get there and you're like, I could do this.
Yeah. Not that bad.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
But no, a good point to add as well, especially if there are women who are listening in who are going through a longer, maybe infertility journey than anticipated and looking at potentially coming up to their 40s or maybe in their 40s even, that it's okay. It's still possible. And however you envision life after that baby will be completely different. You can't control that. So it could be so much better than what you anticipated.
Yeah, exactly.
So where can people, obviously I mentioned your Substack link at the beginning as well. So where else can people find you and connect with you?
So I'm mostly on Instagram. That's where I spend a lot of my time. So that's Jodie Fitzsimons _ author. And then I'm also on Facebook, Jodie Fitzsimons author. And yeah, my Substack page, which is just Jodie Fitzsimmons, I think. So if you know my name, you'll find me somewhere.
Yeah. And I want to apologize because I just said at the very beginning, I said your surname wrong. So
You know what? Everyone does, and I just have to live with that.
no, I've grown up with that my whole entire life too, having a Polish surname. And also now, even my married name, it's not even a Smith or anything. So I still have to explain to people how to say
I
it.
thought Fitzsimons as a married name would be easy. I'm like, yay, I get away from my other one was Schooler and no one could spell it or say it. But no, my husband said, no, you wait, it'll be Fitzsimmons always.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Sure enough.
Yes. I'll put my hand up and say I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, my maiden name so was Mashevsky, so it had 11 letters in it,
Yeah.
and it was never pronounced. Even Shana, my name doesn't get pronounced right. And my married name is Southern, so it's not even Southern, which I get a lot,
Yeah, right.
Southern, but because it's AN, and I'm like, I couldn't even have a normal last name, like a normal married last name.
Life is not meant to be easy.
So I totally feel you, and I apologize because I said it wrong.
Okay. No.
But no, I really do appreciate you being here and sharing your story and having it open to also reassure and validate others in their journeys as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a great podcast, by the way. I think it's really important. So, yeah, I think it will help a lot of people, or it does help a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like I said at the beginning or before we started, I think it's what I felt like I needed. And I feel like if there's other people out there that were anything like me, they would hopefully find there's immense value in these conversations that we have.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't happen without people like you coming in and sharing your story and things that happened in your experience, but also the ways that you felt like you could cope with what was happening too, because there's so many different ways that we can navigate the darkness and navigate the healing as well.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you to all that have listened in. If this episode was valuable to you, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode. Thank you for listening in with me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode, share it to social media, and tag me at Institute of Healing_PL. I love seeing what is resonating with you right now. If you want to chat further, I invite you to connect with me through Instagram. Head over and follow my Instagram account, send me a DM, and let's open the communication. If you want to know more about how you can be the support for others, head to the show notes and fill out the application form for the Pregnancy Loss Practitioner certification. I want to also note here that what I share within the episodes is not medical advice. If you need further support, please consult your doctor. Thank you again. Much love to you. Be gentle with yourself, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode.